You're listening to The Local Maximum, episode 235.
Time to expand your perspective. Welcome to The Local Maximum. Now, here's your host, Max Sklar.
Welcome, everyone. Welcome. You have reached another Local Maximum. Today's episode, I have someone that I met up at the PortFest conference a few weeks ago who is involved with something called Seasteading. And I'm fascinated by this stuff. You know, people who want to be what I would say modern day pioneers and live out on the ocean and try out new forms of government. I'm not sure if it is for me, although I love to travel. And if anyone actually set this thing up, I would consider visiting. But the idea for me raises so many questions. And my next guest was kind enough to field all of these questions. And we ended up with a really stimulating conversation this week, all the way from the mechanics of how this floating city would work, to the geopolitics, to the legal and philosophical questions and implications. So that's why I really enjoyed this conversation, and I think that you will too. My next guest is the founder of Freedomhaven, which is a seasteading project that seeks to gain complete legal independence from the current world governments on their seafaring megaship. Tony Olsen, you've reached the Local Maximum. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so this is the first time in Local Maximum history. We've been doing this show for 4 years. We cover a lot of technology stuff, but I don't think I've ever covered seasteading. We did a show with the guy doing Liberland. I'm sure maybe you might be familiar with the Liberland crew, but no seasteading. So let's just start from ground one. People who don't know what seasteading is, are you guys trying to make your own country, your own society? What is it? What is seasteading all about?
Seasteading is basically a play on the words homesteading, but on the sea. So like if you want to create a home for yourself, a lifestyle, go to a place, live off the grid, that's homesteading. The idea is similar, but on the open sea. And there's some advantages and disadvantages to doing this on the sea. One of the disadvantages is that it's more expensive, but the advantages is that you could go to places outside the jurisdiction of local governments and have a lot more freedom that you couldn't have anywhere else.
Okay, so how long have you been working on this, and what was the moment when you said, this is worth working on for me?
About 2018, me and some online friends were talking about basically lamenting the fact that we felt like we could never achieve the freedoms that we sought for in our lifetime, and voting for freedom just didn't seem to be working out well, because the people who wanted to have the level of freedom that we were seeking for were a minority in society. Everyone talks about freedom, but it's a very, very small minority of people who actually really, really want freedom. It's just one of those big things. You have American flag, you wave it back and forth, and everyone's like, "Oh wow, freedom! It's American, it's beautiful, apple pie." But when it comes right down to it, most people prefer their security and safety, or perceived safety.
So why is this the best solution? Were there other solutions that you expected or not expected, but explored?
Yes, we actually were 4 years into the project. We actually tried all kinds of different ideas initially. The project did start with a seasteading concept, but we were trying different designs, different approaches on it, trying to come up with our own custom solutions. And at the end of 4 years, we realized that there's a reason why they make the ships the way they do nowadays, because it's cost effective and it makes the most sense. So it took us a while to go full circle and realize, we're trying to reinvent the wheel, and the wheel has already been optimized, so we can just make use of what exists today. But there are other seasteading projects out there today. But the seasteading projects, there's really two groups of people that do seasteading. There's a group of people who just love to live on an ocean, a beautiful sunset and vista, and they don't really care if they live in a tyranny in a harbor of some dictatorship, because they're happy to wake up each morning to a beautiful sunrise.
I mean, you go to some of those resorts in Nicaragua. I was at one once. Amazing. I mean, there's, Ortega is the control down there, but yeah.
And that's one type of seasteading. The other type is what we're basically into, which is that for us, it's not about living on the ocean as much as it is freedom. and the ocean just happens to be the best place for us to find the freedom that we seek. We're not really seagoing, salty sailors who love being on the water. It's more of a tool to an end, and right now, that's the best option we have to achieve the freedoms that we're looking for.
So can you give us some examples of the freedoms that you're looking for? Like, there must be certain things, like I feel like I can do just about anything that I want to do here in the US. Maybe you could prove me wrong. Give me some examples of something I could think of things that maybe I don't have the freedom to do that I'm not that interested in. But what are the people that you're working with? And I kind of want to get a sense of your organization too. Like, how many people are you working with? And but like, the people who you want to do this with, like what sorts of freedoms do you tend to be interested in?
Well, that's a tricky question because tyranny over the thousands of years we've been on Earth has gotten very clever in how it takes away freedom. And nowadays, it takes away freedom not directly through you by saying you may not do this, although that happens a lot. Most of the freedoms that are taken away are through the company you work for or the places that you buy stuff from. So, most of the time when people complain about corporate is doing this or corporate's doing that, or why this big company do this stupid thing, most of the times they do that, they don't realize that the US government controls all those companies, and they have gag orders and other regulations that forbid them from actually talking about it, which means a regulator can come in and tell specific people in that organization to do certain things, and they're not even allowed to tell their bosses about it. So we've kind of been taken over as a socialist country, but it's done so covertly that no one even knows about it. So basically, the freedoms that we're looking for is basically just to solve whatever problems that come up, as long as you aren't threatening someone else's life, freedom, and property, to just solve life's problems. And the result is you have more initiative, you have more, you're reaching your greatest potential, and you have a lower cost of living, a higher quality of living, and life is just better.
Right. So, but one of the issues that you're going to have, it sounds like, is the cost of living, because isn't it expensive to like get these boats together and set this up and go on the sea? I mean, maybe you're looking for some long-term play where maybe it's not so bad, but it yes. Sounds like, maybe comment on that.
Yes. The most expensive thing is basically the space itself. Life on the high seas, life on these mega ships costs between, if I remember correctly, between $400 per square foot to like $10,000 per square foot. It's really expensive. But what we have is basically something that's more
how is that, like for rentals or for just
the construction, the construction of that much space.
Okay.
But we're trying to make something more economical. So you can live on a cruise ship indefinitely for about $100,000 a year. If you play your cards right and go from cruise ship to cruise ship, you can stay on a cruise ship indefinitely for $100,000 a year.
That's expensive, but it's a full entertainment and
exactly
food lifestyle. So interesting.
We can do something similar for about 1/5 the cost. And instead of it being a cruise ship is a moment frozen in time, where this is luxury. We're going to play a certain theme, whatever it is, and they do the same theme over and over again every week for the entire, for forever. But you only see it a week at a time, or 2 weeks at a time. But here, this is different because this is reality. Instead of it being a fake rich paradise where you're pretending to be something, you're going to plays and so forth, and it's the same plays going on over and over. It's actually like being in the city where you live right now, except that the cost of things is lower. So the space is more expensive. This is why people who live in big homes on the land live in cabins on the ship. So we already kind of have a feel for what life on the seas is like. We've seen these big mega ships. Well, we know how people live on them. Right.
I mean, I think you're getting to this, but just to cut through what I'm thinking is like, okay, I wouldn't want to live on the ship. I don't need all that entertainment and stuff all the time, but I do need more space if I'm going to live there full time.
And
I can't live in a tiny cabin.
Yeah, you can have all the entertainment you want. You just go, like if you want to go to a movie theater or you want to go to a play, anything that you seek for, a free market will be trying to find the way to most efficiently provide it for you. The difference is that you're actually paying for each entertainment, but all in all, it's probably like 1/5 or 1/10 the cost of living on a cruise ship. And what we're basically doing is it's kind of like real estate for those who want to live in a specific location on Earth. And this location is outside the exclusive economic zone. And to explain really quick what that is, the like 95% of the countries in the world got together and under the UN Convention of the Law of the Sea, and they signed the United Nations Convention of the Law of the Sea, which basically means that they agree. There's lots of things that they promise with that, but one of the things they agreed is that their jurisdiction ends 200 nautical miles from shore. And what that basically means is if you're more than 200 nautical miles from shore, you're outside their jurisdiction. With a couple of caveats, you have to have a flag of convenience, which means there are some regulations on the ship itself, but that doesn't affect the passengers. It just affects the crew and the manifest and so forth.
Interesting. So it'll be not under the control of any jurisdictions. Although, so you're thinking about a ship, right? Not a platform. I know that was probably a discussion as well.
Yes.
So why don't we establish like, hey, you're looking at a ship. Why a ship?
Because there are a couple of advantages. We looked at oil platforms, which everyone loves oil platforms. They're very sexy, they're very attractive, but they don't hold as much weight. They're optimized because they're meant to be more stable because they have less water displacement and they're more tall. And the spar is an ingenious design, but it doesn't hold as much weight and it costs more per square foot. The reason why the majority of the ships out there are basically what we call monohulls is because that's the most efficient way, the most cost effective way to produce as much storage as much space as possible. So we can do an oil platform, kind of a spar, and some other seasteading projects are doing that. But you're looking at a different kind of price level. And that whole point here is to try to, I mean, you can, the ultra rich can go on their mega yachts today and go out to this location today. This is more trying to bring this into the reach of people who are middle class or even some poor people. We're trying to bring it as low as possible so that most people can afford it.
So what phase is your project in? Like, are you like, how serious are you getting? Are you just a few guys with a dream, or what? Tell me about your organization and funding and all that.
We have 4 phases in the project. We're currently in phase 2. Phase 1, which completed earlier this year, actually. That's right, last year. Was basically just creating an initial design, coming up with a plan, governance, how the whole thing is going to work, estimate of the cost and so forth. And phase 2 is basically an explorative campaign where we're going to find 4,000 people who say, wow, I like that idea enough to put $5 down. And so we're going to find 4,000 people who say, this is a good enough idea for me for $5, and that's going to be $20,000 total, and that's going to be used. We're going to use that for marketing and so forth. And every year, this project does double in size. So at the current rate, even though that's fast, it's still, we're still small. And we'll this thing, if we continue the same rate, this Freedomhaven project, this floating city will exist in 15 years. So that's a long way out.
It's a long time horizon for sure.
It is a long time, and we would love to do it tomorrow, but it's a phased approach. We're finding 4,000 people who are interested in at the $5 level, and as more people have pitched in, and more people have shown their interest, the drive kind of feeds itself, and it would basically double each year. The next phase, phase 3, is to contact Samsung Heavy Industries, the actual shipyards who actually build these mega structures. What we have our design is an initial design based on what they've been building before and what we found out about them, and it's kind of a high level design. We don't have every single nut and bolt. It's just a high level model. So phase 3 is actually contacting Samsung Heavy Industries. 4,000 people will put $500 down. And it'll take 4 years for us to find those people, and that'll be $2 million towards Samsung Heavy Industries, and they'll do their prototyping and testing and so forth. And then the final phase is 64 $65,500. So basically per cabin is $65,000, and that covers a 10-year lease, including security, maintenance, the ship, and
so where is this thing? I assume this thing's going to be built in some country,
yes.
and then and then sail off, not sail, but go off into the wild unknown. Where do you see it ending up? Like, what is it just going to move around the world, or is there going to be a certain area it's just going to hang out?
It's not going to be like the world. There's a ship out there called the World for the Ultra Rich. It's like a huge mega cruise ship. I think there's like 150 residents there. And they basically constantly sailing around the world, spending millions of dollars a year kind of thing. This is something different. We're actually going to find a place and park there. Currently, we're thinking about the South Bay of Bengal outside of India, between India and Singapore and Sri Lanka, because there are a bunch of advantages there. One is that it's 70% of the world's trade travels through that water, which means we can interface with those trade routes and have container ships stop by and exchange containers with them. And we would actually be a fully functional registered port that other ships in other countries would recognize, so that you can still order stuff on Amazon. It just may take you a couple more days or extra week to arrive. So, but medical care would cost like we're guessing like maybe 1/10 the cost of what it is right now, because there's no government regulations. We have a true free market. So medical ideas and concepts technologies will compete with each other for the best solutions. The only thing that might be a little more expensive is food. The same way that it is in Hawaii. Hawaii imports almost all of their food, and milk, eggs, all that stuff is still there in the stores, but it costs like maybe 30-50% more than it does in normal stores.
Right. Right.
So that'd be about the same there.
Yeah. No, that reminds me. A friend of mine was telling me about northern Quebec, areas like very remote areas where like a bag of chips will be $10 and stuff like that. Maybe it won't be that bad, but so. Okay, I have some more serious questions. Well, this is a serious question, but let's get it out of the way. Like, I imagine, like, someone being like, "Hey, no running on this part of the deck," and someone would be like, "Hey, I thought I had my freedom here." Like, what? Who's going to decide what the rules are? And there will be kind of a lifestyle there that you'll be like, you'll have to acclimate to. Whether it's, even if everyone on the ship speaks English, okay, that's for someone, okay, they're free to speak whatever language they want, but like, they're probably going to have to learn English or whatever languages are spoken on the ship. So how are you going to, decide on that? Is it just going to be a general, like, hey, we're, have you thought about that? Do you think that's going to raise any issues? Are people going to be, someone might be like, "Hey, this is not as much freedom as I thought." If they define freedom in a different way. Talk to those issues maybe.
Basically, on our website is freedomhaven.org, and there's a tab there for the Constitution that we currently have. Basically, the idea is the freedom that we're talking about. The freedom itself is defined differently for different people in different situations. Yeah. So people say, "Oh wow, look, I'm flying my single engine aircraft through the clouds, and this is freedom." Or, "Wow, now I'm a millionaire. That's freedom." That's not what we're talking about. When we say freedom, we means your ability to do whatever you want without someone else using force to stop you.
Right.
Basically, what is also referred to as natural rights. Now, to understand what we mean. What restrictions we'll have there is you have to understand the things that would destroy freedom. You're not free if you're dead. You're not free if you're kidnapped. And although it's a little less understood, you're also not free if everything you build keeps getting destroyed or stolen. Sure. So basically, the only rules we have there is you may not murder, kidnap, or steal. And kidnap and steal excludes a list like rape is a combination of kidnapping and stealing, and arson is a version of theft, and things like that. And the Constitution lays all that out specifically. Yeah. But there's a second layer as well. For example, there are people who will want to, like, for example, me. I will hopefully be there with my family, and we probably will not want to have people smoking cocaine and marijuana and having sex in front of our doorstep.
Sure. Yeah.
So so basically, everyone will go into this and say, okay, what restrictions are you willing to put on yourself? what would you want? And everyone who agrees with those will be together in kind of a gated community. So what will happen is on this ship, there'll be locations where it says, well, you can go into this community, but if you do so, you're agreeing to these extra rules that you may think are draconian or whatever it is, but you don't have to go into that community if you don't want to. But that way, that community can still have those extra restrictions they want on themselves, but they're not infringing on someone else. It's something that everyone there is voluntarily deciding to do. And in so doing, you can have those extra layers of things without infringing on someone else doesn't want to agree to.
Right. So are you imagining like different communities on the same ship or different ships? And also like, I'd imagine when you're setting this all up, you kind of want to get a sense of, okay, if we're going to have these 4 or 5 communities, let's have like a good kind of diversity or range of what we're going to allow here.
Basically both. We're starting out with one design, one vessel, which also has a built-in harbor, a gantry crane, and works as an actual functional port. But after this is like the seed of a city, even though it itself is a city. And it's just going to spread from there. All kinds of
what population can it support? That's before we go on.
Yes, 4,000 cabins.
Okay.
And each cabin is about 19 and a half feet by 7.5 feet by 8 feet tall. But you can combine multiple cabins together to multiple spaces together to make larger spaces. So you can have, and the actual population would vary greatly depending on how, there's no rules how you use your space. So we're gonna have some rich people who may have 20 of these cabins and build themselves a nice mansion. We're gonna have some other people who may be importing from a very impoverished country, and they live 12 people in a cabin in these huge things, and that's their choice. As long as they can all fit in there and no one's dying, and we're gonna have air pumped into all the cabins, it's their decision. That being said, we're guessing that we'll probably have a starting population of about 5,000 to 10,000 people in this ship, and that's just this ship. Every vessel is going to be its own province within the country of Freedomhaven, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So I kind of interrupted you a little bit in talking about the different communities within the ship and how that would work. So yeah, you can continue with that maybe.
That's it. Basically, people can choose for themselves what additional limitations they want to have. The only additional limitation that might happen for the main vessel we're designing is called the New Liberty vessel. The only additional restrictions the New Liberty vessel may have is like explosives. You can have explosives, but if the explosive is big enough to break through your cabin and threaten your neighbor's cabins, then you have to work with us about proper storage, or even have it stored off the vessel or at other location where it's more secure. Those kind of things.
Do you think those things could be contentious? Like, does your constitution be like, okay, here's a method for resolving those disputes? Because obviously, like if I'm doing chemical experiments in my in my cabin, maybe there's a very low chance that something can go wrong, but the person next door is like, I think the chance is a little higher, and I don't want it to be happening. So maybe they both have a point.
Exactly. And we've been spending 4 years. We meet mostly online on 2 different Facebook groups. We have the Gathering Freedomhaven group, where it's just a general discussion, and we have one that covers more specific role playing scenarios, like what you're talking about, and that's Freedomhaven government role playing. And we actually cover those kind of scenarios, and we've been discussing those. And right now we're a group of about 700 people online. And it's a volunteer group. So how many people do you have in your organization? Well, it's very difficult to say because everyone kind of participates when they have time. Some people participate more. I myself put about 20 hours a week into this project. But other people put like 1 hour, 5 hours. Some people we hardly ever hear from. So it's kind of hard to say how it is because it's a volunteer organization at this point.
Right. So I want to know more about your Constitution. Like, how is it different from the U.S. Constitution? Have you learned from our experience in the U.S. Constitution? Imported some things, maybe changed some things. I'm kind of curious as to what your approach has been.
Well, the preamble sounds pretty similar in that sense. The purpose is to preserve freedom and allow us to achieve our greatest potential. But one way we're approaching it differently is the Constitution lays out what governments can and can't do. In a sense, the Freedomhaven Constitution, or as some people will prefer to call it, a contract, because the term Constitution, we have some anarchists in our group that don't like the idea of there being a Constitution. So for them, we call it a contract, because that's kind of what it is. You can't come in unless you voluntarily said, I've consented to this contract. There's no implied social contract when you came in. But lost a train of thought.
Yeah. No, right. So it's a contract. You agree to it when coming on the ship, and then you probably also agree. There's probably a separate contract for your internal community as well.
Exactly.
But I guess in terms of like the structure, like, okay, is there going to be maybe a, do you need a legislature or a board or something to regulate, or maybe a plebiscite or whatever, a vote to regulate, let's say, what kind of chemicals you can keep in your I forgot that. The difference in our Constitution and the U.S. Constitution is that instead of describing what the government can do, we define government differently. We're not using the term government the way most people define government as a monopoly on force. We define government as basically anybody who's using force. So basically, if you are defending, let's say there's someone right now that breaks into your house and you've apprehended them, you put them in handcuffs, you tie them up, and the police are going to come by and take them away, right? In that 30 minutes between the time where you've captured him and the police come and take him away, you are government to that person. They are your slave. Quite literally, you have full control over them. You've encapsulated them. You've kidnapped them in a sense, and your actions are justified, but the way the Constitution defines it, in that moment, you are government. Anybody using force is government, and force is only ever justified for self-defense. And we get into specifically what that means. So this Constitution differs from the U.S. Constitution in the sense that this whole focus is to restrict when force is allowed. Basically, essentially that you can only use it to defend your life, freedom, or property, or someone else's life, freedom, and property, and nothing else. Anything else beyond that is illegal. And how you implement that, how you do courts and so forth, is up for each individual vessel to decide. The New Liberty vessel will, for example, have courts, but since we have no taxation is theft, and we will have no taxation on this thing, people will pay for they will choose who they want to have implement and mediate in their courts and handle all that stuff without taking money from other people. Yeah, I assume maybe through some kind of insurance. But like, what about paying for the common areas of the ship, or just ship maintenance in and of itself? Because it is a vessel, someone needs to, make sure that it doesn't sink, and I don't know, someone needs to steer it.
Definitely.
So, yeah, how are those decisions made? And also, like, did you take any structural things from the U.S. Constitution? Like, is there a legislature or some kind of executive board or some kind of decentralized thing?
This is where it might be shocking, but this is not a democracy. There's no people are going to be, your neighbors will not get together and vote on what to do with your car. There's no majority. The only thing that will happen is by 100% consent. It's not 95. It's not the majority. It's not even 2/3. It's 100%. And if there isn't 100%, you have no authority to do that. The government has no authority to speak for the people. You have no representatives. Basically, we go into it very beginning knowing exactly what the laws are going to be. And if anyone wants to change anything from their communities, they can move around to different communities, or they can change it in themselves with the communities. But that's only if everyone consents, which means we'll have this whole thing played out, at least for this 10-year period that we're doing it. Remember, this is going to be for a 10-year lease. And what happens after that 10 years is we can revisit everything and see if we need to adjust how the whole plan is going to work. But the $65,000 per cabin includes the making of the ship, the maintenance, the security, all that stuff for 10 years of this vessel. But you are right, because it's a vessel, you'll have continual maintenance. And unlike property on land where you own it and it's been your property, you spend your family for generations, this will be rent, because you will always have to keep maintaining the vessel. Otherwise, the vessel will very quickly rust away and sink. So we'll have to keep up on top of the maintenance going forward for as long as the life of the vessel goes forward.
Right. So, like, you have some kind of a design for this vessel on your website. It's called the New Liberty. Am I correct about that? Saying,
yep. New Liberty vessel.
Who designed that, first of all? How is it different from, say, like a cruise ship?
Well, we actually started with, not to be shocking, that the cost of an aircraft carrier, a cruise ship, and a container ship is so huge. The container ship, these mega container ships, are 160 to 180 million dollars, which is incredibly cheap, all things considered. A cruise ship, the latest large mega cruise ships are like 1.3 billion dollars. An aircraft carrier is $17.5 billion. So there's a huge difference. So we started with the design of a container ship, and then basically adjusted it to be more like a cruise ship, but not as much a cruise ship as much as it is.
So then you could be a port.
Exactly.
That makes sense, yeah.
An industrial megaplex for housing, stores, factories, anything you want to use it for. So it doesn't look as sexy as a cruise ship, but it's very, very functional.
Right. Very cool. And what do you see? Oh, wait, I'm just reminded of a situation I was in the other day where, so I live in New Hampshire here. You were just here, right? In Pork Fest a few weeks ago. And, I
loved it.
Yeah. No, I know. I have so much more freedom just moving here. So I'm like, not, I'm kind of happy here. But I remember some friends came over 4th of July and they bought some fireworks and set them off in the field across. And they're like, yeah, in New York, Connecticut, people would give us crap for this. Here we just allow it. But unfortunately, it seems like on the ship, you might not be able to do that.
Well, it depends on your community. Maybe your community would be okay with fireworks.
Right. But like, wouldn't other communities object if they're like, you could set a fire and it's going to like burn down the ship? I guess that maybe that's not really so possible. Depends what kind of fireworks we're talking about here. So yeah.
We're going to have, it's going to be a fully functional ship. We'll have the staff that is there on site for security and maintenance will actually have fire drills and stuff for handling how to put out the fires. We're going to have sprinklers in all the cabins and stuff. We won't have, if we design a ride, you shouldn't have runaway fires.
Gotcha. Okay. I don't know why I'm coming up with these edge cases like there could be a runaway fire and the whole thing. Anyway.
We love those because that actually helped us improve the design over time. Over 4 years, it was coming up with all the ways this thing could go bad. They helped us actually refine the design to what we have today, which is, so we love them. We love hearing about them.
That makes sense. And so I know there's a lot of seasteading projects out there. There's like there's Seasteading Institute. There's multiple ones. Like where do you see your project living within that so-called ecosystem? First of all, has anyone done this successfully yet? And do they all have like different flavors, different like ideologies, or some similar to yours? Is there some that's very different from yours? What does that whole space look like?
Well, first of all, the Seasteading Institute isn't a specific seasteading project. They are an umbrella that a nonprofit organization started by Patrick Friedman to basically encourage individual seasteading projects. And actually, I'm doing a presentation for them actually in August. It's on the website. So I'm actually listed on the Seasteading Institute as one of the active seasteading projects. But what differs us from other seasteading projects is that unfortunately, we're the only seasteading project. Serious seasteading project. We'll have some guy with drew something on a carbon saying, we're going to build this huge island in the middle of whatever, and it's going to be all that. But they never got beyond an actual design. And honestly, we're not taking them very seriously because they haven't really done that much. We're the only real seasteading project that we know of that is actually planning to go where freedom exists. Everyone else is planning to have their projects inside the harbor of some tyrannical government. And if you're inside their exclusive economic zone, that country owns you. And there are a lot of failed seasteading attempts in the past, and they all have the same thread, the same issue. And that is that they were trying to create a seastead inside the jurisdiction of another country, and they were all shut down by those governments for one reason or another. And that sets us apart. Is we won't do that. There's no trust in the government. We're going to be outside of the exclusive economic zone, and we're the only ones planning to do that. Now, if I have other ones try to do that, none of them had tried to do that and offer freedom. But these floating cities are out there today, and we have thousands of people that actually work on aircraft carriers, cruise ships, container ships, and that's their life, is living on the high seas in these locations. But those industries don't provide the freedom that we're looking for. So we're basically doing the exact same thing they're doing. We just have a different industry. The industry is basically real estate to offer freedom to people who want to live there with freedom.
Are there any that have like a radically different ideology, or are they all kind of in the same ballpark?
Well, they all, some of them want to have freedom, but not sometime in the future. Like maybe eventually we'll migrate out there, but it's not really, they don't really have a plan.
Okay. It sounds like a different approach, I guess.
Exactly. They're more focused on the ultra rich wanting to have a nice place in a harbor of a tyrannical country where they have a beautiful sunrise.
Okay.
Unfortunately, we would love to have some more competition out there because it would make everything better. But we're the only seasteading project that is actually focused on freedom that we're aware of, or that the Seasteading Institute is aware of.
Yeah. Well, it's a very cool idea. Do you guys, why is it that you think that like no one's come close to actually setting this up yet, or have they? Like, why is that? I've heard about seasteading, probably, I've probably read it in science fiction books, honestly, many years ago, but like, why hasn't this been done, 20, 30 years ago?
Two reasons. Some people just don't, it's not about freedom, but they don't really care about freedom. They just love living on the ocean. And so they have a different goal. But there are people who do care about freedom, and those people who care about freedom haven't done this specifically because this is such a bold, huge, mega plan that we need the 4,000 we need the leases of 4,000 cabins accounted for to actually pay for this. The whole total cost is $260 million, and it's a very expensive seastead in that sense. And most people think that it isn't possible. We could never find that many people who are actually interested in it. Right. So that's why they don't really try. And it will take so long to slowly build that up. But like I said before, we've been doing this for 4 years, and every year we double in the support. We double in the number of people who are interested. And piece by piece, we are getting there. And as long as we keep doubling each year, in 15 years, this thing will exist.
Yeah, no, I guess, and I don't know, maybe this is an off-track question, but I guess what I'm thinking is like, why was no one attempting this in the 1970s? There were people who cared about freedom in the 1970s, and yet maybe people did try, and it has something changed? Has the economics changed? Has the interests of it changed? Or
a number of things. The economics have changed. It was before in the 1970s, we didn't have the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, so there were disagreements about where jurisdictions ended and so forth. Okay. In fact, actually, there's one one interesting show on Netflix called Rose Island. Talks about a person who actually went out and created themselves a nice little floating platform, like five miles from Italy's shore, outside of their territorial waters. And Italy ended up conquering. They were in the process of getting recognized as a nation by the UN when Italy actually conquered them and destroyed the platform. And that's kind of one of the reasons why they created the United Nations Convention of the Law of the Sea, to help have everyone be on board with exactly what the rules are, so everyone's on the same page. So we didn't have the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea back then, and we didn't have containers. The concept of containers and shipping was completely different. And before then, everything was just packages and boxes and barrels and stuff, and it took forever to unload and load things, and the whole shipping industry was completely changed. And South Korea has really revolutionized the way they make ships to make them more economical than they were before. I mean, each year they come out with a mega ship that's slightly larger than the ones they did previous year for a slightly cheaper price. So they're constantly pushing that barrier, and so in a sense, they've made it cheaper for us to do that. And all these technologies are now finally in play for us to actually do this, that weren't around decades ago.
Yeah, that's a great answer. That's really cool. And yeah, I'd love to talk more about like the whole shipping container revolution on this show, because I've read about it. Very fascinating stuff.
It is fascinating.
I think we're coming to the end here, so maybe you could tell us, hey, where can people? Any last thoughts, first of all, and then where can people find you online, and where can people learn more?
All the information, links, pictures, diagrams, designs you can download. All the information is available on our website, freedomhaven.org. You can also find us on Facebook at Gathering Freedomhaven, or our sister group, Freedomhaven Government Role Playing. If you're interested in wanting to show your support for a project like this, I'd encourage those listeners who are interested to consider donating $5 and help us show that we have at least 4,000 people in the world that are interested in this just enough to put $5 down, and then we'll take it to the next level and find the 4,000 in the next 4 years, line upon line, and help us get there.
Very cool, Tony. I really, I'm glad I ran into you at the last second at PorcFest. I think you just reached out to me and gave me your card. So that was. And by the way, there are some people there who, it's some of the conversations are tough, but no, I really appreciate you coming on the show. Thanks for coming on the Local Maximum.
It's my honor. Thanks for having me.
That's the show. To support the Local Maximum, sign up for exclusive content and our online community at maximum.locals.com. The Local Maximum is available wherever podcasts are found. If you want to keep up, remember to subscribe on your podcast app. Also, check out the website with show notes and additional materials at localmaxradio.com. If you want to contact me, the host, send an email to localmaxradio@gmail.com. Have a great week.
Feel the power.